Exchange Chan Megan
Joanne
입니다.
안녕하세요. 엑스체인지 첸. 44번째입니다. Hello. Hi, Megan.
Did you forget my name briefly? Hi, Joanne.
I did it.
I'm Megan. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you are Megan.
Yes.
Right.
I'm all right. How are you?
It's been okay. Same as usual.
Same as usual.
Yeah.
I mean, same for me too, but I live a rather exciting life. So.
Exciting.
Well, it's one of those things where like it's normal for me, and I don't always feel like I need to talk about it, but I think to a lot of people, my life is very exciting.
Your life is so exciting.
Yeah. Or maybe how I tell stories is exciting. But yeah. We're living. I'm tired today.
You're tired. Again.
Oh, Joanne. Yeah. I've had like really bad sleep lately. And I think it's because as the light starts to come back, it's always that kind of transition, I think, where it's just getting used to a new season, upcoming season. So my body's like preparing me for that.
Finally, you don't have any, some chances to sleep in these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just busy. And sometimes, so something I think people don't always realize if you're not an artist, but I think anyone can relate to when you have intense energy, you ride that energy and sometimes it just kind of it might take a while to dissipate. Kind of like if you drink too much coffee late at night. I sometimes just get that simply by creating. And so it can... I'm still finding ways and I always have to readjust the ways because sometimes I'll figure out a way and then a new creation comes in and it just like disrupts that. And so finding ways to ease into rest because sometimes the artist, you don't want to sleep because creation just fuels you to keep creating.
Oh, so nighttime is so helpful to make some kind of creation.
Sometimes. It really depends. It's any time where I feel like I can just like think and breathe, and sometimes that means the world needs to be asleep, like the world in my close proximity, like because I can feel the energy. So sometimes randomly at like 3 a.m, it's like everyone's sleeping, create now. Like I'll have some random, I had like a big creative epiphany come to me as I'm like, why can't I sleep, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden at 3:30 a.m, I go, yes, I must. And I not that I needed to create it right then and there, but the idea, I was like, I need something to apply for this one thing. Like, what am I going to create? And then came. Yeah.
So everyone catch that. You want to be a creative person and just to stay up all night.
No, don't
and wait it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do that. It's really, I mean, I think it often happens when it comes late at night because you have that breathing room that you've given yourself. I will have some of these epiphanies in the middle of the day. You just need that time and that space to be connected to that flow. And whenever you can do that, that's when it comes. And making sure you then listen to it and follow it.
So for me, sometimes very few times when I spend my night, and then staying up all night, there's nothing to bother me around me. And so I just focus on something, and then I can do that, and then I can put my all energy on that.
Exactly. And I think that's where it just is easier. 'Cause like you said, fewer distractions, nothing's bothering you. And so, yes, it's in a lot of lore, it's called like the witching hour, which, you know, but it's just, you have that space to be. And the moon is also very powerful, as is the sun, just different kinds of powers, right? And so it's tapping into those different energies when you can. But staying up all the time late at night, like it's not conducive. in some ways. Like sometimes I need it, yes, but I also don't like sleeping in until 2 in the afternoon. Like, so, it's finding that balance. And whenever seasons change, not just like within the earth and the earth seasons, but just seasons in my life, when they change and transition, I just need to find new ways to adapt to that. And right now it's an adapting time. So yeah.
Okay.
But meaning, I don't know, with our topic today, we're talking about mothers. I don't know how keen all mothers are on a child staying up all night.
Okay.
So, mothers. We've talked about mothers and motherhood quite a bit on this show.
Yeah, already we did.
Yeah, but today we're kind of diving into it a little bit differently. So what are we doing today?
So I always think about that, the differences between the Korean mothers and then Western mothers or American mothers.
Yeah.
And then, as one of the Korean mother,
Yeah.
I feel a little bit sorry
For your experience or
my
someone like my
experience, and then compared to the young mothers.
Okay.
So I want to talk about that differences between.
Great. Let's do that. Fantastic. I mean, I think just as with both, these are also preconceived notions, meaning not everything that from your experience, not every mother in your generation had the same experience. Just as not
it depends
everyone.
on persons,
Yeah. And same with
my story is just focusing on my experience.
Exactly.
And then my thought way. And so don't get me wrong.
Yeah. No, I got you. But I think sometimes people often do make major stereotypes or ideas of both. Because I've also had an experience where people are like, are you sure you were raised in America in some ways, or like in a white family in the States? Because there are just it's uncommon in some ways. And in America specifically, it's multicultural, right? And even though there is like an American thread.
Melting pot.
There's an American thread in a lot of the families, but there's still, it's multicultural and everything is multifaceted, and it's not every family. So we'll talk about the nuance while our own experiences as well. So yeah, and we can talk about that.
I understand that you are not a mother yet.
If ever. I'm a mother to my art, but that's very different than a mother to a child. But also not. It is and it's not. It's different kinds of responsibility. Yeah, and dedication. But yes.
So I don't want the exact story about the mother, just your surroundings story about that mothers.
Yeah, I mean, and I observe a lot, and I also, research a lot, because like I've made the decided, I've been very conscious of my decision to not have children right now, if ever. And so that means I'm very observant. That means I'm very, like, I'm not doing this. I could literally have a child whenever I wanted, right? Like, it's not like there haven't been offers. So I'm very educated on this. I just might not have the experience of giving birth or raising a child yet, if ever. So, but yes, I can, as we know, I can very much talk about this.
Yeah, that's right. So in that aspect, I'm very lucky to have you, very observative, and then
she tries.
As a co-host.
Well, and I'm glad that you have the experience, because like I value experience a lot.
Yeah, I am very experienced.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You know
already.
So here we are.
Yeah. And then very first one, I'd like to talk about the Korean, as a Korean mom. Something that I admire about how American moms raise their children is the level of involvement and control. I mean,
like lack thereof, or different kinds.
So I mean that the Korean mom is very involved in their children's lives, and then from the very small one to the whole life, through the whole life.
Okay.
We just as a, how can I say, as a partner, a whole life partner.
Okay.
Now, the mother's role is very heavy.
Okay.
To our children.
Okay.
And then especially in education, moms tend to be deeply involved in their children's lives, such as what they should study or major or what career path to follow, and then how much time the kids allocate to which subject. So Korean moms dedicate a lot of time and energy to ensuring their children perform well in school. So it is a kind of very everything has pros and cons.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very helpful to raising their kids as a very well educated children.
Yeah.
Well educated adults.
Yeah.
But in some way, it's a kind of very heavy pressure to children.
It's a pressure, and it's a lack of seeing a child as an autonomous being.
And then, sometimes it makes us very serious conflicts between them.
Yeah, because if you're not seeing a child and listening to who they are as a person, they're not able to then express that. Like, you're pressuring someone to be a doctor, and sure, they might be able to do it, but they might be better at being like a business owner, and they can still be successful as a business owner, and like providing food for their community. Like, how is that not as good, right? And so, yeah, I mean, there's that big stereotype of like, you're in a Korean household, or I lived in Taiwan for us, so I'm very familiar with that. It's doctor, lawyer, now engineer.
Yeah.
Those are very valued.
My age's parents,
Yeah.
they all have this kind of mind concept in raising their kids.
Yeah.
And then, but nowadays, I know that a lot of things changed. And then, especially for young moms, even in Korea, there are a lot of various kinds of mindset, thinking way of the different way to keep to raise their kids. So I want to understand their attitude to raise their kids, but sometimes there are many things I cannot understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also like generational. It's also I think now there's more access to different things, whether it's education, but also the birth rate has gone down, and so it's very particular people having children nowadays. And so sometimes that means they have, in some cases there's more money, and so then you can provide children more things. I know that is something that if I ever have a kid, I want to make sure I have enough money to be able to provide them how I would want to provide for another human. So that would, I think it just always, I think conversations like this are hard sometimes, because it's like, if we think about it like from the American perspective.
So I want to know about the American, especially American moms.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very different. I think you were saying pros and cons. There's like this intense control in some ways, and then and this isn't everywhere, because I had it in some ways a bit more leniency of like what I could do and pursue, but there was also a lot of pressure to do certain things, and I think because it maybe the kinds of pressures or the things people focus on are different, and maybe it's more widespread here in Korea, for example, to want your child to be a doctor or a lawyer or prosecutor, whatever. These work for the government. It's just there's still that pressure. It just looks a little different. But in America, there is this really hyper individualism too, which sometimes in some families that means a lack of like, oh, you're on your own, good luck, and to a detriment, right? So there's that freedom, for example, but it's also without support in some ways. And so that can be I mean, like, in some ways it gives you the freedom to choose what you do. I'm an artist in the way I do things and how I choose to do things because I'm free of that familial pressure. But did I have like a very strict religious pressure and to adhere to that way of doing and thinking and being? And there was because they weren't helping me financially, I could maybe choose more of what I was doing. But there was that pressure of like, we don't want you to be doing this. And there are, I mean, I know plenty of people who are like encouraged to, if not forced to, run the family business or to really like they will put them into, especially if their families are paying for their college. It's like, well, I'm paying for this, so you need to pursue a study path that I approve of. So that happens in the States too.
So it means that they don't support the fee of the studying.
Well, mine didn't. I had to pay. Well, I have loans. I didn't have $40,000 a year to pay. I have loans, but yeah, it's it depends on family to family. Like I said, the States are huge, and so yeah, you have some families where it's, you know, we want to support you in doing what you love, and so we will support you doing that. Sometimes it's, hey, I'm paying for your education. You need to study how I approve, or what I approve of. Like, and that means a certain path that I like, and I don't care if you like it. In my family, it was more of like you better be doing something about God, like with God. And so there are those pressures. We also have this phrase called helicopter parents.
Helicopter parents.
Yeah. So, because of any kind of flying object, like a helicopter can hover, unlike a plane. So they're always hovering over their child. Right?
Always hovering.
Yeah. In Taiwan, because I was a teacher there, the phrase was tiger mom.
Tiger mom.
Yeah. So, you know, it's that like fierceness that like, you know, that that ultimate protection, control over something, right?
So the several meaning of the protection and control.
Yeah, and that's helicopter is more like that hovering. And so we would get that sometimes, like if you go to university, you have some helicopter parents that want to know, because I worked in a lot of jobs, because like I said, my parents weren't helping me financially, so I was working in a lot of jobs. And so I got a lot of different experiences with different people, but also like the administration. And so it was this, some parents would like be calling, even though these are adults technically, they would be calling the schools to make sure they like knew their kids' grades and if they were going to class, and like they wanted all this like sensitive private information to make sure their kid is doing what they want their kid to be doing, and also just to have like control over their lives. And so the control looks different in different ways. Like in my family too, there was like a lack of boundaries in some ways. So there was this like idea of like, I need to control how you're living life. So it looks different, but sometimes like more stereotypically, at least how I grew up, there was a bit more of a even though mine's an extreme case, because I'm just like, for most people, I'd probably make most parents uncomfortable. Like, who is this child? Like this black sheep running around. Yeah, there's you know, I think it's just a difference of what the priorities of control are. Yeah.
So the American moms, they also control their children.
Yeah, I also think it depends on what culture you're from. Like there are Korean Americans, right? There are a lot of like just different ethnicities within the States, and that culturally, and also, are you a first generation immigrant or not? Or have you been there a while? Are you fully in your ethnic of origins community, or are you in a more multicultural diverse space that has like different ideas that are coming and mingling, you know? And also that can also mean like, because I'm for those who y'all don't see me, I'm white, and so which is a certain cultural aspect in the States, and sometimes if you're too ethnically, culturally white, that's also a big like conservative hyper independence that like sometimes to a detriment. Like you turn 18, get the fuck out of my house, right? And like, oh, you should be grateful for living in my house. I'm 10. Yeah, you should be taking care of me. Like, hello?
Isn't it a kind of duty of
exactly,
the parents?
You're my mom. Like, what? So there's, you know, and that can be really detrimental. And so like I said, there's the pros and cons of like, sure, I might have my freedom, but no support, right? And lack of community.
You can call that freedom?
It's not.
In that age?
It's not. But or even like when you turn 18 and then like get out of my fucking house.
It's a different matter.
It's different. But still, you're still a baby, you know?
It's still a baby.
So
in Korea? No way.
Exactly. So it's just different cultural, and there's some beauty to having someone care so much that they're wanting to control your life. But so I think it's that balance. So there's, yeah.
And then how, you know, and every ordinary young Americans, they think that they have to go into the university after high school.
So that's really interesting. In my generation, I'm a millennial.
Millennium.
Yeah, millennial. And there was a big push for people in my age to go to university. And it's actually like become a big problem in the States because like we were kind of all encouraged and forced to, but the States doesn't have free education, and so it's been a financial burden for my generation. And it's like an issue that's going on right now that needs to be solved. And
but you know, in America, you know, there's some very famous idioms that without STEM courses, you don't have to go to university.
I mean, so I think there was like a big push, and there still kind of is a push. Like my high school, there was such a big like idea that we needed 100% of our students to go to university after they graduate, right? And there was that push, and so if one person, and it was a small school, so like I graduated with 120 people, which was a big class for my school, and that like one person didn't go, it was like, oh, how dare they not go, right? But at the same time, like I know quite a few people who are successful enough and if not quite successful, and they didn't go to university. So there is an idea now that you don't have to go to university, or also that education should be more accessible, and that other types of education should be valuable. And so that's more of it's been a conversation for a while, but especially because of my generation where there was this almost forcing to go to university. Unlike, like, because I also lived in Europe for a while, right? And in a lot of the education, like it's very affordable, if not free. And a lot of people are highly educated because a lot of it's free education, and it's kind of, yes, required a little bit, but a lot of the degrees kind of are like bachelor's plus master's. In 5 years, you have a master's degree. So it's like very just kind of that. And then there's more education, whatever. So, I mean, I have a master's degree, so I forget that like technically I'm a highly educated person. I forget this. But yeah, I guess it varies, but in my generation there was a push to have a degree, and there still kind of is, and I think education should be available if you desire it, but there are other kinds of ways of being educated. Yeah, here you need a degree.
So strict, so strong. It's a kind of necessary step. Yeah. To be an ordinary adult.
Yeah, but we've also talked about this before. Which we'll mention briefly, and then we'll have some But that, because I've asked you this, maybe I've asked it on air, but privately for sure. Because sometimes I think by requiring education, that doesn't automatically make you intelligent. It makes you good at studying. It doesn't always make you, like, there needs to be critical thinking. And that isn't always, because I noticed that sometimes.
I don't think so.
What?
I don't think so.
You don't think?
I don't think that to study more can make some people very critical or very intelligent.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
No, I think it depends on the type of studying you're doing.
It depends on.
And that's why, because when I did my education first, I took off a year in the middle of it, and then I also waited a little bit in order to get my master's degree, because I wanted to make sure I was in it, fully immersed in it, to fully learn instead of just studying it to get the degree. Right? I think being able to fully take in what you're doing and being interested in what you're doing and having like goals besides just memorizing and doing this. It's why whenever I was a teacher, I was so adamant that my students knew what they were doing instead of just writing it to get the grade. Like, you need to understand.
And then I think that kinds of very, good at learning something, learning, studying, that kinds of person can do other things so well.
Sometimes. Sometimes not, though.
Sometimes not, though.
No, I've met some very highly educated people that, like, in life and in, like, certain aspects of, like, even just, like, intelligence, I'm like, you
Book
are...
smart.
Well, and they're not even that smart to me because it's like you're just regurgitating what you read instead of actually thinking for yourself. That is different. Great that you know this thing that someone else wrote and you're, like, vomiting it at me. But what do you actually think? Not what someone's telling you to think.
But, in some cases, the knowledges we've learned in school is so helpful to...
Hell yeah.
Yeah, to helpful to, to take some, his own job.
Don't get me wrong. Yes. I also think that sometimes we need to look at what those things are then. I think there are some ways of thinking that aren't always taught in school. And that is ultimately what helps you do anything. And like adding that to it as well. For sure. But Uma? Okay. Today is a BTS kind of day.
Oh, BTS day.
I guess so. So our first song by them is Save Me.
숨쉬고 싶어 이 밤이 싫어 이젠 깨고 싶어 꿈속이 싫어 내 안에 갇혀서 난 죽어있어 Just wanna be lonely Just wanna be yours 왜 이리 깜깜한 건지 네가 없는 이곳은 위험하잖아 망가진 내 모습 구해줘 난 돈을 잡을 수 없어 내 심장 소리 들어봐 잘못대로 널 부르잖아 이 까만 어둠 속에서 너는 이렇게 빛나니까 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me baby Save me 오늘 다른 빛나 내 기억 속에 빈칸 날 삼켜버린 이 lunatic Please save me tonight 잊히기 어린 관계 속 나를 구원해주리 나 알았지 널 안 구원해요 내 삶의 어둠의 아픔을 감싸줄 유일한 손길 The best of me 난 너밖에 없지 나 다시 웃을 수 있도록 더 높여줘 네 목소리 내 심장 소리 들어봐 잘못대로 널 부르잖아 이 까만 어둠 속에서 너는 이렇게 빛나니까 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me baby 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me baby 고마워 내가 나게 해줬어 넌 내게 나게 해줬어 목이 트도 나게 해줬어 답답하도 나게 해줬어 꿈속에만 살던 날 깨워줬어 널 생각하면 날 깨웠어 슬픔 따윈 나게 해줬어 Thank you 우리가 돼줬어 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before 그 손을 내밀어줘 Save me I need your love before
And then another aspect,
Yes.
I find out there's some kind of differences between Korean and American moms.
Okay.
There is emotional relationship between moms and kids.
Yeah.
And then American moms, I think that they are usually more expressive with affection, and then hugging them and frequently, openly discussing emotions. But while Korean moms show their care through actions rather than words.
Okay.
So I think that.
I mean, you're talking to someone like, well, the nuance. So anyway, yes.
Yeah.
So is that kind of...
I think that the American moms tend to prioritize independence more than Korean moms who focus heavily on education, discipline, family expectations. So,
yeah, I mean, as we said, there's the pros and cons to that. Like with this family expectations, with, I will do things for you. It's very commonly known, even in the States, like if you come from an Asian American family or like Korean American, it's your parents don't show you affection. They only show you affection through, I made you food, right? But I also think that's a very, it's a love language throughout the world. Like it's a way people express their love a lot. Even like my grandmother would always give us candy to show her love, because she wasn't always someone. She had to like get used to me wanting to give her a hug. So there, I think everyone's different, but you're right. There is, like I said, I also grew up in a white family, which is different than different ethnic backgrounds in the States as well, and the different cultural expectations within those backgrounds and families. I don't know if it's, again, pros and cons, because if it's more community, right, you're giving your family more community in certain sense in the way that you're doing it, but then maybe there's a little more emotional satisfaction in some ways. Like, can I ask you, when's the last time you like kissed your child?
Kissed my child.
Or like hugged them?
Hugged them.
Yeah.
I cannot remember.
Really? You don't even hug them now?
Very few.
Okay.
Very few.
Okay.
And then sometimes I can give some affection, especially. But ordinary cases, ordinary times, I don't give. And then they don't give me either. And then we just to give some words.
Okay.
Just words.
I mean, words are great. I like to be told nice things, and I like telling people nice things. But that's, I think, also where culture comes different. So like Americans are funny, or at least how I grew up, my experience of Americans. There's a big like expectation of hugging sometimes, or like handshakes, but then any other kind of touch is like really taboo.
Taboo,
meaning like, because then I also lived
in America.
Yeah, because then I also, at least, because it's very Puritan, which is like extremes in a lot of ways. Because then I also lived in Europe, where like in some places hugging was a big deal, whereas like kisses on the cheek and other kinds of like physical touch was not that big of a deal.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, think of like stereotypically, think of like an Italian culture is a bit more touchy. Like I met this beautiful mother and daughter in the Philippines, and they were Italian, and the mother was always like touching my arm, and when she would hug me, she would like hug me and like kiss my shoulder. I met this woman an hour prior, right? And so it was just it's a more affectionate culture, at least like how we connected. She felt open to be more affectionate toward me. When I first moved to Switzerland, it was, now they're hugging more. When I most recently saw them in 2022, but when I first saw them like in 2012, 2013, it was weird to hug someone unless you were close to them, but it was, you would kiss them 3 times on the cheek, right? And
then kiss on cheeks, or some the touch cheeks, and then the hugs, even between the men. It is often in the Middle Eastern society.
There is that too, right? It's just different cultures have different greetings, right? And then that informs, and also different cultural customs. Like here we've talked about how still it can sometimes be taboo for, if you're in a relationship, to have if we're talking heterosexual, very binary here. We're not talking about queer communities, unfortunately. We should talk about them more, but hey, here we are. That it's not as common to be in friendships with like someone of a different gender. So yeah, I think there's always evolution, but it also, I think, sometimes just depends on a person's comfort level. Like I've had people in my American family uncomfortable. Like I said, my grandmother, it was like hard for her to hug you all the time, and my dad was always like hurt because she would never hug him or tell him she loved him, but she would hug me and tell me she loved me. So it just,
Why different?
Well, I think it's, she's just not she has passed now. She was not a very emotionally or physically affectionate person, but I think she felt she could do it more to her grandkids and maybe felt like a little guilty for not doing it to her own kids. So it's just, kind of that stereotype of a grandparent expresses more to their grandkids than their actual children. And that happened in my family too. I don't know. I think I also grew up in a different kind of household, and so there was like expectation for an emotional connection without boundaries that wasn't always safe. And so, I'm still learning how to be more of that, and feel safe in that in relationships. But I do know the importance of physical touch, and so that, like with this affection you're talking about, I think in our world, I always, obviously safe, because I think like I don't want just anyone touching me, but I do think safe, loving, emotional connection and touch. I think in Korean you have the word skinship, which means more than just physical touch. It's like emotional connection, I think, is necessary as humans.
Yeah, always always we need that kinds of connection, so close connection between humans, especially parents and children.
I think so too.
It is necessary, it needed.
Well,
and then but sometimes, in Korean, so severe, so strong convention society, I feel that that kinds of expression of my affection to, even though to my kids, it's so hard, not so easy steps to do that.
Yeah, I think that's really unfortunate sometimes. But we've also talked about how you are, the ways you did care for your kids and do care for your kids, which is also really beautiful. Like to prioritize eating well, or to prioritize having someone educated, is needed, right? And a clean house.
I understand that. I know that we need the kinds of very close expressing our affecting feeling. But I'm a guy already educated not to do that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
That's the very big issue.
Well, what I am saying is, I think the ways that you do express your love are already beautiful. Again, we've talked about sometimes it's the extremes, and where it's if you don't have that physical affection or emotional connection, because like I've been on the opposite, where it was almost like a demand and not listening to how I wanted to express, and that was also detrimental. So it's finding that balance of like caring, but also, because there are times where maybe I would like more physical touch from someone, but they're not big on physical touch, and so it's respecting that part of them, and that's okay too. So I don't know, I just also know, as someone who didn't always receive safe touch, and also then has had moments in my life where I've had like no physical touch, I know the importance of physical touch and emotional, like deep, intimate emotional connection. It's so necessary. And I think in a lot of cultures, in most cultures I've been there in, there have been some blockages in all of that. And sometimes they look very similar and sometimes different, given, like you're saying, the things that you've been taught to do or not to do. And and that's also, it's part of what I pursue as an artist, is to encourage some of that while listening to ourselves and our safety, and respecting others and theirs as well.
And then, as one of the guys who didn't who was not taught to do that.
Yeah.
And then I felt very sorry about my attitude, because in my age, there are a lot of ordinary people not to do that. And so I'm a kind of one of the common people.
Yeah.
But nowadays, a little bit. A lot of things changed.
Yeah.
And then, I can find it easily to express their own feeling in a very natural way.
Oh, really?
So, very, kind of from the young generation, young people, they express it, even though on the street, they...
Like, what do you have an example?
When I go to Hongdae, I can find it so easily to some couples to express their affection to each
physical?
other. Physical touch. And then, and then a lot of cases. So I feel some strangeness in this very
are we talking about PDA right now?
PDA.
Okay, so we're getting away from.
We already talked about that.
Yeah.
And then in this very strange period.
Yeah.
Strange times. I feel that I'm a kind of a stranger here.
Because
that feeling.
Well.
And then
I'm usually the strange person. People are like,
you are a foreigner, so
always
it's
that.
natural.
I'm that, and I'm artist, and so it's like you're thinking
as
it's
an
strange.
artist.
You look strange, but yeah. No, I get.
So I think I'm a stranger too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think when it's something you're not used to, and if you're maybe have been closed off to it, it's gonna feel strange, and you'll feel like a stranger to that. It's because it's funny. It's like talking about PDA. Yeah, I think there's like that. You very much notice it. So there is physical touch around. I don't know. Like sometimes I also feel it's formulaic with some people. And that's not just here in Korea. Like sometimes I think we don't know how to touch each other kindly, right? Like there's either aggressive, unsafe touch. And there are those who have maybe been hurt or have lacked touch growing up. And that's around the world in many cultures that maybe you weren't lovingly hugged or cuddled or kissed on the cheek or forehead or whatever. And that then stifles or at times hinders your expression of touch and not and movement, even like that's also with like dance, like how sometimes people are scared to like fully let go within moving dance wise. I mean, how many times, and this is sorry, not sorry, y'all. How many times is like if someone can dance well, they probably good at fucking like there's a connection to one's body, and I'm not trying to equate that. Like I know we're talking about mothers, like that. Sorry, we're not. It's any type of connection to your body and freedom of expression of love of any kind, whether that is, we're talking lustful, passionate, romantic, anything within that, like fucking, to PDA of a kiss of like today, as you there was a scooter coming and then I just like grabbed you quick because I didn't want you to like to have that freedom, because some people, I've also had moments where I would even be scared to like reach out and do that to someone because I was afraid of connecting in that way with someone. But like that's also touch, physical touch, right? Even just I'll like put my hand on someone's arm or leg because like we're laughing together, like that's also an expression. And then to get to mothers, right? Or parents, all parents, because I also think it's important for, regardless of your gender, to connect with your child, right? Physically in a really beautiful way. Like I grew up with hugs and kisses from both my parents. And that's needed. Sometimes though, like I say, sometimes it's too much, right? When you were forced to have your uncles and aunts kiss you when you didn't want to be hugged or kissed by them. That was an issue where it's like, no, give them a hug. It's like, I don't want to hug this uncle. And there was an uncle who wasn't very safe. And so it was like, you're forced to hug and kiss them. And it's like, so the extreme is not great either. So finding that balance of a personal expression and autonomy of, and that's why I brought up dance. That's why I brought up fucking, like it then comes into that later in life of that freedom of expression of physical affection and also withholding it. I don't have to hug everyone. In the States, it was a big thing to like, you need to hug everyone when you leave, especially as a woman. Even when I was in Switzerland, like the men could just shake hands. But no, at first when I was there, it was more of a requirement that like, I need to let everyone kiss my cheeks. Like always. I'm like, I don't know you, but okay, I guess we're kissing. So yeah, there's a lot of that expectation sometimes. So finding that balance, while also making it not so taboo to like, hi, let me hold your hand, you know, but also not forcing that on someone. Because sometimes someone's like, I'm just being kind. It's like, no, you're also, I don't know you. Don't touch me. Right. So it's a balance for sure.
Okay.
What? Why? So I love when you have that reaction to me because sometimes you're just like, sure, Megan.
A little bit shocking and a little bit thinking about, and then a little bit can understand.
Okay. Okay. What about what I said was shocking?
Shocking.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't expect it, from your saying about the Western moms. And then you said that there are some kinds of moms who express so eagerly to their kids or to their spouse or to everyone their affection. And then others who don't express. And then, so you said that it depends on persons, and then it depends on families' habits.
Yeah, and I think like your culture.
So that makes me kind of very shocking.
Okay. Okay.
So I didn't expect that that is so different in Western society too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think regardless of your culture, it's really also personhood, also family habits and what's common within your family or not common.
And then I always just thinking that all Western people are so intimate.
God no. Not at all. No. I think sometimes there are more cultures in various Western societies that maybe have more of a tendency toward that. And so, I understand where you're coming from. And sometimes I think there's certain ideas around psychology and like parenting and rearing around a child that is more inviting to physical affection and expressing that. So I understand that. And also what's shown in media. And I definitely probably experienced more than what you did as a child or what you gave your children. So yes, I totally get it and I understand. But yeah, so maybe that's the shocking bit. We're getting toward the end of this segment, and before we have our last song, you said you also didn't understand. Am I speaking too fast? You can tell me if you have a question, right?
Okay, so if you say like that kindly, and then even though I think that it could be some bothersome to your saying that the flow of your saying the stories, but I will bother to say it to you in the middle of the saying.
I feel like how you think you're going to bother me won't bother me. I think you will think you're being extreme, and I don't think you're actually going to be extreme. If it does bother the flow, well, we'll just figure it out. But I think that's something that I really value within any kind of multilingual, multicultural relationship, friendship, or even anything, right? Is, hey, if you don't understand me or you want to understand me more, because I'm curious, like I want to understand and I want to feel understood and see someone. And so I think it's important to, yes, give them the stage to talk and let their flow, but also feel safe enough and have the connection to be able to say, hey, I didn't understand that. And as someone who has the dominant language in our conversation, that's my mother tongue, I think I have the responsibility to be open to questions. And that it's something I've worked on a lot as just a human, and as someone who has been foreigner, is I feel like it's part of my responsibility to be open to and to accommodate questions and further understanding, because you're being kind enough to speak my language.
Okay, then I thought that the flow of the story is much more important than my misunderstanding. But from now on, I will not hesitate
Don't
anything,
hesitate.
and
Yeah.
then ask you, what is that? What is that word?
What is it? I mean, and I think it'll depend on the situation. Like sometimes, yes, the flow is more important, but sometimes the flow can be amplified. It can be encouraged by a question.
And so
that's
sometimes, I cannot understand it so fully, exactly. Then I react to you asking you some question or some summarize you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, so because I understand you in a very bloody way.
Oh, okay.
So
I mean, you're right. Whenever there's language learning, you are correct in assuming that sometimes it is more important to get the full idea and then ask questions. Like I did that when I was learning German. I'm like, okay, I don't understand those 4 words, but I get the idea. And then either I will look up those words later or I will ask what they mean by that. But so you're right in saying that it is important to get the full idea and to have the flow, but questions are okay.
Yeah. So actually, I'm a guy that, I think that, the flow is much more important than my understanding, my misunderstanding. But after our talking, I remember that I will ask you some words that I didn't understand. Yeah. But after that, I forgot that.
Oh, okay.
I forgot that word.
Understood.
And then keep going, you're saying.
Got it.
So I missed the moment.
Well, maybe what we can do is find our flow in our conversation so that you feel your understanding while, yes, maybe you need to look up some afterward, but sometimes it's also okay to talk.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're so kind to take it up about that.
I mean, I think that's the least I can do. I don't know. That's normal. Is that not normal? See you next time.
Okay, and then we will promise that. See you next time. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Our last song is Microcosmos, again by BTS.
반짝이는 별빛들 깜빡이는 불 켜진 건물 우린 빛나고 있네 각자의 방 각자의 별에 어떤 빛은 야물 어떤 빛은 방황 사람들의 불빛들 모두 소중한 나널 어두운 밤 외로운 몸 별처럼 다 오랜 빛나 사라지지 뭐 큰 존재니까 Let it shine 하찮은 이 밤의 표정이 이토록 더 아름다운 건 저 별들도 불빛도 아닌 우리 때문일 거야 You got me 난 너를 보며 꿈을 꿔 I got you 지륵 같은 맘들 속 서로 겹은 서로의 빛 같은 말을 하고 있었던 거야 우린 가장 깊은 밤에 더 빛나는 별빛 사람의 하나의 역사 한 사람의 하나의 별 75개의 빛으로 빛나는 75가지의 world 75가지의 삶 도시의 야경은 어쩌면 또 다른 도시의 밤 각자만의 꿈 내다 shine 넌 누구보다 밝게 빛나 어쩜 이 밤의 표정이 이토록 아름다운가 저 어둠과 달빛도 아닌 우리 때문일 거야 You got me 난 너를 보며 꿈을 꿔 I got you 지긋같은 밤들 속 서로가 본 서로의 빛 같은 말을 하고 있었던 거야 우린 가장 깊은 밤에 더 빛나는 별빛 가장 깊은 밤에 더 빛나는 별빛 깊을수록 더 빛나는 별빛 도시의 불 도시의 별 어릴 적 올려본 밤 하늘에 난 떠올려 사람이란 불 사람이란 별로 가득한 바로 이곳에서 We shine You got me 난 너를 보면서 멈춰 I got you 지륵 같은 밤들 속에